started coaching age 14. Around that time, while I was sat at home recovering, the Millwall Lionesses job came up. The journalist that wrote a piece about me being a genuine candidate for the England world.
Hello everybody and welcome to Daily Coaching. Daily Coaching are currently hosting a series where we're talking with current and ex-managers within the game, within the men's and the women's game, and kind of talking about their journey, how they got into the positions that they're in, and also talking about their relationships with individuals, so the players, and also teams as well. And I'm absolutely delighted today to announce that with us talking on this discussion, we have Lee Burch, who is the current London Bees manager. And like I said, we're talking about how Lee kind of got into that position and what he's done previously, and then kind of just talking about those real coaching elements of working with players and working with teams as a whole as well. So Lee, first of all, massive thank you for joining us here today. And if you can you just kind of start us off from your first journeys within football, but also specifically coaching, kind of taking us up to where we are now?
Yeah, cheers for having me on. And my journey started really early. You know, I started coaching age 14 in like a local grassroots side that I was playing in. So I must have been under 15 player, 16 player then. And I started coaching like the like the tots, like the 4 or 5 year olds that come in, and 5 or 6 year olds that are making the next group coming through. So I started going down and helping out that on like a Saturday morning. And that was my first sort of taste of coaching, working with the real little uns. And then at the same sort of time, I did my work experience with the Hampshire County FA. So at school, obviously at 14, I think it was about year 10, is it? You go in to do work experience somewhere for a week or so. And I got a link in with the Hampshire FA. So I went into them. Look, I spent a week making cups of tea and doing all that stuff as you do. But Sue Lopez, who massive within the women's game, was head of coaching there. And she enabled me to spend the day out with their community coach, a guy called Matt Beckenham. And I just went out and observed him coaching kids in a school and seeing that side of things. And it kind of hooked me on a little bit as far as maybe that's something I wanted to do. And then I kept going back with the County FA, kept working for them and ended up getting a full-time job in the discipline department originally. So all the bookings, all the yellow cards, red cards that would come through, and I would sit there and process them. But that wasn't really for me. Coaching was really the side. So the County FA realised quite quickly they probably needed to move me into the coaching department. And that's when I started doing my courses. I started linking up. It wasn't even a level 1 then. It was a junior team manager's course. You could do that when you were 16. So I did that as a 16-year-old. And then I did the level 2, which was again called a coaching certificate back then. I think you had to be 16 or 17 to take that. And I did that the week of my birthday. There was just a course literally after say it was 17, week after my 17th birthday. I went on that course straight away. But I got the opportunities through working full time at the County FA offices. And then I was coaching alongside it. And that's where I've got my first taste of working in the female game. Because Sue Lopez, as I mentioned, was the County FA head of coaching, but she was also at that time running the Slampton Girls Centre of Excellence, the RTCs as they are now. And she obviously saw something within me within coaching. I was doing my coaching courses. I was out working still within the top stuff at the grassroots level, still working as much as I could do. And she gave me an opportunity to go into the RTC, the Girls Centre of Excellence. And again, you always look back at those moments, those opportunities. What she also did was, normally when you have a new coach, and we had, I think it was under 10s, under 12s, 14s and 16s. Normally a new coach, generally in culture, they get thrown in with youngsters, don't they? They get thrown in at the bottom end. And but she maybe saw something in me. She put me with the 16s. And I was very lucky that I was straight into the 11-a-side game, which I really enjoyed. I was working with some good players. You know, I had some very good players in that group. And yeah, really enjoyed it. And that was kind of my first paid role, getting paid, working, 4 times a week, 3-4 times a week with them. I think it was probably twice a week in a match day. Looking at still development, but also looking at a match day. And that really got me my bug around management as well as coaching, picking the side and things like that. And yeah, it kind of blossomed from there. And I did lots of other coaching. I ended up leaving the County FA, went abroad to America for 9 months, lived over there and did that. And then I come back and got involved with the FA Skills Programme, which just prior to that, when I first come back, Hampshire FA gave me another job, which was full-time girls and women's coach. And then from that, I jumped into the FA Skills programme. And alongside that, I was doing loads of other coaching, still playing in non-league, and trying to help out here, there, and everywhere, working with boys, under 14s, under 15 sides and things like that. So I've always been one of those people that I look back on my journey, and I did everything. I coached adults, boys, girls, youth, kids, disability coaching, went into futsal coaching, things like that as well. So I tried to do everything, and everything was a challenge. Also worked a bit within Southampton, when I come back from America, in their community programs, and did all that. So again, all the schools coaching as normal before going into the FA Skills program. And I was there for 12 years, and that really helped me mould as a coach. I've been quite lucky that, and you don't get this all the time, especially when, going back the years we're talking when I was involved, that I had 3 or 4 full-time jobs coaching.
Yeah.
And they weren't around much then. They weren't around. It's maybe a bit easier nowadays to get hold of a full-time role in coaching, especially back then. Because even though the academy roles and stuff, there was probably 1 coach per age group at Southampton, for example, but they weren't full-time. Whereas nowadays, there's a lot more full-time roles and opportunities for people to be full-time and to really delve yourself into the coaching. And the first time I did that was America, to be honest. It was the first time I went over, and all I had to worry about was my coaching. Yeah. Prior to that, I left Hampshire FA. I was working for Southampton just before I went to America, just doing the community coaching. But I was working at B&Q at nights, driving a forklift. Yeah. And that was what it was. And that's when I look back, that was my apprenticeship as a coach. And that's when you really sort of learn.
Yeah, nice. And it's interesting because 2 things you picked up on there. So number one, like you said, the employment in football coaching. Like you said, I agree. I think that now, I think there's a lot more opportunities, because I think obviously there's things such as the PE Premium Fund, and obviously a lot more organisations or community schemes want that to be used for obviously sport opportunities. And we know that we live in a country where football is one of the leading sports, and probably more accessible in terms of, you don't obviously, you can play anywhere pretty much. You don't have to hire out, obviously, in tennis, you have to hire a tennis court, and basketball, big basketball courts and things like that. But I think that, it's a bit more accessible. But interesting, you mentioned obviously about, like you said, getting the actual opportunity to coach. And I think this is a big problem. I think sometimes with these part-time jobs, listen, coaches have the passion, they have the energy for it, and they love doing it. And like you said, you as a coach, the first initial steps within your journey, you do everything. You're coaching on a Monday night, then you do something on a Tuesday night, then you do something on a Wednesday morning for an hour, then you drive somewhere else for half an hour, and you do it just because you want to learn and you want to gain experience. But I think that having that, like you said, the opportunity to do it full time, and I know it's something like the FA Skills program where you're doing it throughout the whole week, and you're doing it within schools, you're doing it within after school clubs, and you're doing it within centres, and you're doing it within grassroots settings. You're getting all those experiences all together there. And I suppose, like you said, with America as well, I know in America, my experience of going over there was you're working pretty much every day. You're not really getting to experience America that much. It's more so just the coaching hands-on. With those sort of different experiences then, so in terms of, obviously, like you said, you're doing bits here and there with different age groups, and obviously in America as well, where the history of America, and the women's game has been pretty strong over there for a number of years. Was the women's game always something which you wanted to go into, or was it kind of just, look, do you know what, I'm going to take these opportunities here and there, mould myself as a coach, and then it was just the women's game that kind of came along? Or was it more so the passion for it?
I think, as I say, my first opportunities within coaching and getting paid was within the women's game. And as I grew up, I never saw football. For me, it's just football for all. It really is. And as I say, I was working within disabilities and youth and adults and non-league. I've done everything. So to me, it didn't really matter where I worked. And when I come out of I was involved in the RTC, as it was, or the Girls Centre of Excellence program then, which moved into Hampshire FA when Southampton released it, because I was there during the period when Southampton dropped from the Premier League down to League One. Yeah, and we won the league that year with Southampton girls. We were on the pitch at St Mary's getting presented the trophy the last game of the season. They're going, well done, the girls here have won the league. We beat the Arsenals, the Chelseas, and everyone. And then that pre-season they dropped it all. They got rid of it because, again, it was the first programme to go because the club had dropped into League One, and that was being funded by a community programme at the time. So it all went, and Hampshire FA had to pick that up. So I worked within that, but my last season within the Girls Centre of Excellence at Hampshire, I don't think we lost the game. You know, we had a really good group. The likes of Millie Farrow and Laura Rafferty were in that team. And we had a really strong team. And I kind of felt after doing it for a few years, I didn't maybe have that challenge anymore. So that's when I decided to move away and move into non-league stuff and within the men's game. And I just kept sort of an eye on the women's game, mainly through knowing all these players that had come through, as I say, Laura and Millie doing what they've done. There was lots of other girls that have gone on to do well. Sarah Kempson was one that I ended up signing for Millwall later on and things. So I kept an eye on all these players. So I always had an eye on the women's game. But when I was there was no WSL. There was no pathway for coaches, you know, within the England setup and things like that, like there is nowadays. And I felt I'd done my time within that, era. And I was probably looking to see where I was going. I think the non-league route was where it was starting to work for me. And I was slow. I was doing okay there and working within management within that, and probably moving up there. And I broke my leg playing in a game. And while I was sat down, I was still in this skills program at that time. While I was sat at home recovering, the Millwall Lionesses job come up, and two people that were involved in the skills program, Lauren Phillips, who went on to be my assistant, was there. So I just contacted Lauren and said, "Look, what's the situation? You know, when do you train? What do you do? I know it's far away, but it kind of piqued my interest. I was leaving the non-league club. I was leaving, and I basically thought, you know what, let's have a look at it. And I went along and watched Millwall versus Bristol, and the whole WSL and WSL2 as it was then had sort of come on board, and I thought I liked it. You know, it was like the non-league game where I'd come, but a bit more professional in lots of areas. Same sort of crowd, same sort of way it was moving. And yeah, I just decided to give it a go and dive back in. There lots of travelling because I live in Southampton, always have done. And yeah, so I ended up back into the game really through, and you know, it's funny, you know, breaking my leg was one of the hardest things, you know, physically and, you know, and mentally in some ways and on the family to deal with. But if that hadn't happened, I probably wouldn't be where I am now, because I would have probably stayed in the men's non-league game, you know, and I had offers to stay and to keep pushing up there, and some very good links, and I know a lot of very good people in that side of the game. But yeah, the Millwall opportunity come along, and I went along, and it's been brilliant ever since, really. And it's somewhere that, for me, I've seen the growth in the game and seen the players I worked with before doing well. So, yeah, I never really aimed, and I'm not one of those people that thinks, you know, in 5 years' time I'll be doing X, Y, and Z, you know, because I never would have said I'd been back where I am now. So I'm always quite open to it, but I'm really pleased that the opportunities come along, and I'm enjoying every second of it. It's going well, and you know, the football and everything's getting better and better.
Nice. And I think the thing is as well, is like you said, I think exactly like a player, I kind of associate coaches and players to quite similar patterns and paths and things like that. And I think, like with players, I always say to players, it's good to get experience in all different environments. You know, like you said there, you've obviously had experiences of coaching 5-year-olds, experiences of coaching you know, the older age groups, abroad, in England, men's games, women games. And I think that having those experiences, like you say, football is for everyone, and football is football at the end of the day. You know, you're still coaching, you're still teaching the same elements, just dealing with different characteristics, whether that be 5-year-olds or, you know, 18 olders. It doesn't really matter. I mean, like you said, you're just still putting in those implementations. And obviously, I think when you look at the women's game as well, I mean, I know that obviously it's grown massively, which is great to see, and hopefully it will continue to grow as time goes on. But I think you look at the clubs which were kind of the real pioneers and the ones which were big standouts. I think that clubs like Arsenal, and obviously Millwall as well. Millwall was quite a really big club within London, but also the women's game in particular. How did that feel, kind of going there with kind of the pressure, not pressure, but like, you know, the big stature of Millwall being within the women's game and what they've done in the past, and being, like I said, one of those bigger clubs?
Yeah, I think it was just exciting. I think when I went there and I saw that and met the players and sort of see the leagues you're playing in and the teams you're playing against, for me it was just a case of let's get in there and get going. And at the time we also were playing at the Den. So that was great just to be out there as a manager and be working at the Den. And we moved away after that season, but it was good. And, you know, it's a shame, obviously, you know, what happened with regards to Millwall, and I'm sure the Lionesses will be back. And you've got another club in London City that will continue to push and hopefully add to the game and to the community. So it is a big club, and I really enjoyed my time there. You know, when I went there, they were second bottom. I hadn't won a game since the beginning of the season, and it was a case of let's go and give it a go. And the club was so built and maybe ready for driving on, and it will always be one of those that I always look back and go, it was a shame, because any other season we would have gone up. You know, if the couple of things that happened around licensing and all that lot, but we knew at the beginning of the year that no matter what we'd done, we weren't going to go up. And it's such a shame that this whole transitional period, there has been teams that have been the victims of it. You know, Millwall and Doncaster Bell, Sunderland, and obviously it happened to me again at Yeovil. So and there's other sides that have had that, and you know there's teams that through COVID as well have had, you know, unfortunately have lost out on potential jumping up a league that were doing well, and they've got to try to go again. So yeah, I mean through this whole period it has been tough, but I loved it at Millwall. I really did. I really enjoyed it. We had a good group of girls there, but I got to build over a period, which was the big thing. And I was quite lucky. We had the spring series where we moved from the summer to the winter. So the spring series was basically half a season in the middle. So it gave me an extra transfer window, gave me an extra opportunity to work with my team and keep building, but you know, bring in the players I wanted to, and that really helped us get to the point where we started doing really well. But yeah, I think as you said earlier about the game being the same for all, like football is a game, and there's obviously differences between the women's and the men's, and you know, going to watch an under sevens game. There isn't, but at the end of the day, it's 2 goals, players in the middle, and the fundamentals of the game are there. But also for me, I've always said it's also like management and coaching is about people, about working with people. And again, like to be a good manager and to, you know, to be a good coach, I've seen a lot of coaches out there, and I educate for the FA, I do the level 1s, level 2s, and you see some very good coaches as far as how they present things, and great on the laptop. But those skills to put something across to someone, for me, the most important things in management and very heavily in coaching. And if you can't deal with the people, whether they're a non-league player or a female player or an under 7, and we went along to and saw through the LMA, saw Pep Guardiola, and he was talking about how easy it is to work with some of his players, because he was saying that the reason why Sergio Aguero is playing for Man City is obviously technically and everything, he's unbelievable, but he's also top end psychologically and top end with mentality. Yeah. So these players know how to deal with things. You know, their mentality is elite. So when he's dropping them and not playing them and things like that, he was saying that their reactions to it is elite. You know, and there's always going to be little moments, obviously, where things go awry, but that was what he come across. And that's the thing. You're dealing with people. And as you move into different areas, you just got to adapt in relation to that. And that's why I like the women's game, because even though people always want to compare what does it look like compared to the men's game, and, you know, there's no real need for that. But for me, working in the top 2 tiers with the players is their mentality. Their mentality towards becoming better players, and their mentality towards the game. It is elite within this environment, and it's great, and that's what you want as a coach.
Yeah, no, definitely. And obviously, like you said, I think that the main thing there, like you said, about the people and the interpersonal skills, and I think that's a key thing. I think so many coaches which are coming through, and I'm sure you see it in the FA level 1s and the FA level 2s, a lot of them are so based on sessions and so based on the technical side of things. And I've just done a study into CPD and the effectiveness on it, and people's perceptions on it. And the big takeaway point from that is all around, people like to observe and they like to see sessions, but I think the things which are often so neglected are, number one, even if you are doing a session, the understanding of why, not the how, the why, and the when as well. So when are you going to implement these key things? I mean, like, you know, someone might come along and see one of your sessions and think, oh, brilliant, but is it going to work with their players? When are you going to use these certain points? And I think the when part as well, for, like you said, the communicational skills comes of, you know, you'll start to understand your players. And I think that, you know, obviously within the elite stages of the game, one of the big things, and I think this is one of the good things which I see within the women's game in comparison to the men's game, is that the men's game, people were there for, you know, 5-6 games and they might get a sack. there seems to be a bit more of a longevity within the women's game, which is brilliant to see, because like you said, you're able to implement yourself and develop these players rather than just, you know, have the pressure of, we have to win this game. Obviously you want to win the game, and obviously you have certain objectives and outcomes which you set out at the beginning of each season, which the club would like to achieve. But yeah, I think you start to see a lot more development. Is that kind of the main key thing between the sort of different age groups, would you say, that you've seen? So like, obviously development is always a key thing from when you're 5 or however old you are, but is that the kind of main thing you've tried to take away and put into where you are now?
Yeah, well, I've always, and it might sound cliche, but for me, it's all about fun.
Yeah.
It's really about enjoying. It's a game.
Yeah.
And I don't care whether my players are full-time players and it's their job. The weekend is a game, and if they enjoy it more, I feel generally they're more relaxed and they play better. So I get the best out of them.
Yeah.
You know, I'm going to get the best performance because they're enjoying the game. So I really try to drive that home. I think some people lose sight of that, lose sight of that element of it, and I definitely tried it. So I use a lot of the stuff that I took from working. I've got sessions out there that I do with 7-year-olds that I will do with. And I see level 1 students come on my courses, deliver their first session. And it's something I've done with my players. Yeah. Because with access to everything we've got on the internet, YouTube and everything, you can go on, you can find sessions. There's thousands of sessions out there. And to be honest, I'm starting to struggle now to see anything new. I really am. Like, there might be slight variations on it, but there's so many sessions out there. And when you've been doing it for a while, you can always sort of pick and choose, and it looks like that and things. So it's very hard to reinvent the wheel session-wise. Yeah. So it's got to be, as you said, about when you do it and why you do it. I remember, I talk a lot about, you know, I remember Pep Guardiola, actually, he did one where he had a big tyre. And he was rolling the tyre along, and the Man City lads were flying it through the circle. I was expecting to go out there and see under-7s with coaches rolling tyres just because they've seen Pep do it. Yeah. And this is the thing, you've got to understand what he's doing it and why he's doing it in that moment. It's obviously a social session, middle of a full week. Like, and you're working with your under-8s once a week for an hour. You've got to put it into context. And that's the real key, I think, for me, with these coaches that can see stuff out there and all the resources are out there, is why you would do it. And again, you see some one-to-one coaching stuff on the internet, and some of it's great. You see some stuff where they've got all singing and all dancing. It looks just crazy, and it's like, well, what purpose does that serve? Am I going to be able to take that and use that with my goalkeeper or my player in my club? Probably not. But actually, does it engage them, and does it do something a little bit different for a session when they're maybe paying for it themselves or whatever? If it serves a purpose, and you know, and there's some learning taking place, then there's probably some good reasoning behind it. But that's the big thing for coaches, is understanding what they're doing and why they're doing it. And I think the best stuff now is to try to find, not the session, find the way the coach speaks to players. I saw a great one the other day, which I don't even know who the coach was, but I just stumbled across it. But I loved his mannerisms, the way he spoke to the players, the way he worked with them, the way he engaged with them. Something, you know, the lads are all together, and the lad, he's already done his talk, and then boys come out of nowhere. He's obviously late. And he's, you know, give him a clap for, you know, gracing us with his presence. But it was done in a good way. And I kind of looked at it and went, immediately, I was hooked into the way the guy spoke, come across. So I was picking, well, what can I take there from him? Yeah, it's not about the session. The session didn't matter what he was doing. And I think the more and more coaches can do that and try to pick on the personality of the coaches and what they do and what they say and why they say it, then you're going to get the best out of them. Because, as I say, I'm getting level 1 students turning up, delivering or putting on and setting up good sessions. The session's not a problem. They've just now got to deliver the right things and see the right pictures, etc. Yeah,
totally. I agree. I think the thing is, as well, is I've always kind of associated coaching qualifications as job indicators and ability indicators, because, I mean, you probably see it when you do the level 1s and level 2s, and I've seen it when I've done the mentoring. You go out and you see some of these level 1, level 2 coaches, and like, you know, whether it be maybe technical stuff you might take, so some of the session designs, but like you said, the characteristics is a big thing for me, which I take away. You know, simple things like how early are they getting to the session, you know, inspires me. Well, hold on, they're getting there 30 minutes earlier, I'm only getting there 25 minutes earlier, you know. who's it showing up here, and who am I going to take this away from? So yeah, I agree. I think the characteristics is a big thing from it, and also as well, I think you were saying obviously about, like you said, around understanding when and how to use it. I think the big thing is that, like we were saying earlier, people will see things and they'll copy it. And I think one of the big things with social media, and something that I definitely try and do on the page, the daily coaching page, is not even necessarily shine light on the ones who aren't the most vocal, but I think sometimes, depending on, like you said, like Pep Guardiola, someone sees a session from him, I think he could probably just kick a football and someone will go, wow, amazing, I'm going to do that now. And they almost, because they're the most vocal, or because they got positions, and I think people just are influenced by that. Whereas, I've seen some very creative people and very people with some great characteristics who don't get the light on them as much, and aren't in brilliant positions, but you take things away. And I think that's the whole aspect of coaching, really. Taking things and making it your own, really.
During lockdown, obviously, The Last Dance, the basketball documentary was very heavily sort of praised for just being a great program, and showing what Michael Jordan was about. But for me, and I'm sure lots of other coaches out there, everyone's watching Phil Jackson, and going, what's he doing? And the bit when he allows Dennis Rodman to go away and do what he had to do, and everyone knows that, and he knows what Rodman was going to like. He probably knew he wasn't going to come back in time, but he had to deal with him in a certain way in relation to how he dealt with Jordan, and that is top level management and understanding, and getting that because he got the results out of him. Obviously, if Rodman had come back and hadn't been the player he was, then I'm sure he would have got a different tack with him. But something as simple as knowing your player that well to understand, I'm going to give him his lead, I'm going to let him go and do this, and all the other players probably going, you know what, it's the right thing to do, because there's been times when they've probably needed something from Phil Jackson, and he's let them do it. It might not be a 3-day bender in Las Vegas, but for other people, it's what they need, and that's the thing for me is what you take is not just a session. I love watching. I go on YouTube and I will listen to audio books from basketball and NFL and American football and college football. Urban Meyer's one of the best people I've listened to. I don't understand his game, but I love his methods. I love the way he works. I know the game enough to watch American football, but it's listening to them things and trying to take those team building and those culture things as much as you can do from other areas, I think, because there'll be things that work in our culture, things that don't, but there's always a great chance to give it a go and see what happens.
Yeah, totally. And again, I think it links back to the person, because that you're building up your own characteristics, your own personal skills, your own communication, your own decision making, your own problem solving ability. So I think and obviously, through your experiences, you learn the football side of things, and that's where you implement that part. But like you said, all those other areas massively important as well. So obviously after Millwall, you went to Yeovil, and am I right in thinking as well that was around the time of the restructuring, wasn't it? Obviously Yeovil went into the WSL 1, and then obviously you went on to London Bees. How has that kind of changed, and has much changed in terms of, obviously they're different clubs and obviously they play different divisions, but have you had to adapt as a coach or as a manager, or has it kind of all still been sort of your same method, your same philosophy, your same ethoses throughout?
Yeah, I think I'm always adapting, learning, trying to change and still use the good things that are working, but also find a way of continuing to freshen them up. So obviously Millwall was part-time. London Bees, the players are part-time again. In the middle, when I was at Yeovil, that was full-time football. Yeah. So, it's great to sort of go through them waves. Obviously, in the Millwall and London Bees, we're in a situation in the Championship where I won a lot more games. At Yeovil, we knew what we were up against. Yeah. The club did stay up. They'd finished bottom the year before, only scored 2 goals all season, and the reason they stayed up was because of the restructure. Yeah. So they got a bit of a lifeline, and they decided to go professional. And their manager, Jamie Sherwood, who had done an unbelievable job with them getting to that point, couldn't take that role and stepped aside and went into a director of football role. So when Millwall had the financial issues, and again we weren't sure the club was going to continue, Yeovil come and offered me the job, and I went through a process with them around that, and that was brilliant. I only did it for a year, but the people down there were brilliant. The girls were superb. And it's going to be one of those things I'm always going to look back, and with 4 games to go, we're a few points behind, and we got the 10-point deduction, and it wiped it all off financially. We had 4 tough games, and Everton kicked on with Willie Kirk. They did, but you always look back and think there was a chance, and could we have pulled off a miracle? We were probably a couple of players away from being where we needed to be, but over that course of the season, losing 8-9 games, 2-1. And that was whether it was twice against Liverpool 2-1, Brighton we lost 2-1, Man City we lost 2-1. We got a couple of hide-ins against the top sides, Chelsea's and Arsenal, but they're very good. We weren't the only team to get the hide-ins from them that year. So that was tough. But in 80% of the games, apart from against the top sides, I would say even Man City was a 2-1. We competed really well, and when we were in the games, and we were just shy of maybe someone that could get the ball in the back of the net a bit more, probably a striker, maybe a couple in certain other areas. But we just really missed those key moments where we needed the extra goals, and when you're consistently losing 2-1, you needed that. But Yeovil was brilliant, and I really enjoyed it. And obviously at the end of the season, the same happened again as what happened at Millwall, and you start to feel you're a bit jinxed. And and I felt bad. And obviously a couple of my players, Bonnie Horwood, Megan Alexander, Amber Gaylor and Ellie Mason, come from Millwall and have been through that situation with Millwall and come to Yeovil and went through it again with me. And Megan Walsh went through it with Notts County and come to Yeovil. So there was, 5 or 6 players that have been through these sort of similar situations before, and it was horrible. The girls were in tears when they got told what was happening. They were told that they were losing 10 points, and it was nothing they could do about it, because up to that point we still felt we had a chance, and that they got relegated in the classroom. That's what happened. They stood there in the classroom and they got relegated in that moment, and it was really, really hard on them because they worked so hard against the odds. The budget wise, we were obviously minuscule, and we've obviously seen Liverpool last year, and there's been some talk about how they weren't maybe supported by the men's side, and they didn't have the budget they wanted to, which is why they've been relegated. But I'd have loved to have had their budget. You know what I'm saying? And but it is what it is, and it's a real tough division, and it's getting better and better, which is great. So I come back to the Championship with London Bees, which coming back towards London way again meant I could get across a few of the Millwall players I worked with, but a few of the players I knew from around the area, and it's gone well so far. We obviously COVID finished everything off, but we finished in the highest position that London Bees have ever have done in 5th, where we were there all season. So points per game wise, I think we would have finished there anyway. We had a few games in hand to grab 4th, but I think that would have been a bit of a stretch. So we're really pleased, and that big transitional of the year that last year, we're ready to rumble again this year. So the change, you sort of going back to your first question, was around, has it moved on much? I think it's moved on massively. The finances have, the game has moved on just from being involved in the Championship before with Millwall. We've obviously lost a couple of good sides. The Doncaster Bells and of the world were an excellent team, and you've lost some of those players that have got older and have gone into the WSL. But we're getting obviously more foreign players coming in, better academy girls coming in. So I think the 2 leagues over time are just continuing to drive up. And when you've got clubs like Crystal Palace and that coming into the division with the Premier League behind them, it's great seeing Leicester City, for instance, turning professional this year. And Liverpool, you've got Liverpool and Leicester in our league. Probably nearly half the teams are moving towards a professional outfit now. So we're going to be a semi-pro side in a professional league, I imagine. That's just going to keep growing over years. So makes it tough, but it's enjoyable, and I'm very lucky with the group of players I've got for quite a small budget again.
Yeah, no, nice.
As long as I get through without losing any money, I'm happy every year. After what I've been through, I'm just happy. If the Hive goes bankrupt, I've done.
Yeah, well, I
really am.
I mean, this is the thing. I think sometimes as well, like again, the women's game is going in a great direction, and hopefully it continues to do that. And listen, COVID, it's going to have an effect not just on the women's game, but in general in football. But I think, you're right. I think the job that you've done with Yeovil was incredible in terms of, like you said, the budget that you had. Obviously, the I say dominant teams, but I mean the teams that take a bit more, A, history behind them, or B, finances behind them. And I think that, like you just said there, it's everyone kind of always focuses on the football side of things, but they forget about those psychological things, like you just said there. I mean, it's not just yourself who's going through those experiences, it's players as well. And when you're trying to build a squad and you're trying to build a team, it must be hard from a player's perspective, because they're investing in the journey and the project as well. And obviously, if they're going through it, then they're the ones who you're trying to get out on the pitch to deliver the good to you, really. So yeah, it's that tough balance. And I think as well, with the whole experiencing of that, and just throughout your journey as well, like you said, in being able to get players to come across, I think that's credit to yourself as well, in terms of the relationships that you built. I think that's one of the most important things within football anyway, just that relationship you have with players, even if there's some players don't play for you again because of XYZ reason, but either if it's developing them or they've learned and they trust your philosophy or the way that you want to play, and the environment that you set so much that they keep on coming back, then it helps to build things. I mean, you look at the sort of famous scenario of Harry Redknapp, and wherever he's gone, he's taken his 4 or 5 soldiers wherever he's gone with him. But it's credit to the relationships that have been built across that time. And in terms of
sorry, go on.
No, go
I had a journalist say to me, I was like Harry Redknapp with Nico Crancher and that, where I had Bonnie Horwood and Meg Alexander that had been with me in 3 different clubs. So yeah, it gets set. But as I say, when you bring these players along, you know what you're going to get from them as much as they know what they're going to get from you. And Meg Alexander went from being pro at Bristol to semi-pro at Millwall to pro at Yeovil back to semi-pro at London Bees. So people don't really see that background journey where it's changing and the professionalism's coming in, that there's players that have got to go for it, and you go along that with them and stuff. And yeah, I'm surprised Bonnie and Meg have stuck by me after being through the financial stuff we have together. I'm sure they get rid of me at some point, but no, they've been brilliant.
But no, again, it's good to see, because like you said, obviously, if you know the players as well, and I mean, at the end of the day, you want to build a team, you want to build a squad, but sometimes players, and if they do, then they do, but players sometimes will come in for that particular reason. It might be, for example, when Yeovil were in WSL1, it's a great league, but it's then, like you said, you want to see what happens afterwards. And obviously, if these players have followed you, they're not just, obviously, they want to be the best leagues that they can, they want to be most successful players that they can, but in seeing that sort of transition, and at least what you've got with your players, and that what they're actually here for the journey and the project, rather than just I just want to get a couple of minutes out.
And the women's game's so small, because you're talking 22 top tier teams and the players, and obviously when you're talking geographically within London and the south, and I'll be honest, some of the best players I've managed to sign at London Bees are some of the players I've been able to bring in. The reason why they're there is because somebody else, another player, has told them to come and work with me. And that's a glow. And I thank them for doing that. And ex-players I've worked with and things like that, and they've said, go and work with, you'll enjoy it. And that's a bigger glowing reference than I can get when I'm talking to a player and trying to sign them. If they've got someone that they respect is telling them, go there, you'll enjoy it, you'll develop. And I had an agent this year tell me exactly the same, because 2 of her other players one I've never actually worked with, but I've just got on well with over time, but one I've worked with heavily, they told another one of their players that is under the same agency to come and work with me. So that's doing a lot of my heavy lifting, and then hopefully, you never know. Some relationships don't go well. That's natural. But for me, I've always tried to keep in contact with players that have moved on and things. And it's such a tight world, and names can get dragged through mud quite quickly. But that trust that they've got in each other, it's huge. And when I'm at a club like London Bees, where I don't have the hugest of budgets, I'm not a Premier League club. We are where we are, and the club has done very well in the Championship as far as staying in the division generally. It's a big trust for the players to come on board and come and jump into something, and they've got to believe in something, and that's maybe sometimes the group and the other players they see there. So your relationship building, managing relationships is huge, and trying to make sure that you connect with these people on a human level, really, and actually caring about them. And I think that's probably where things have gone quite well for myself, as far as I've generally cared. When things have gone on with other players that I'm not working with anymore, I've still picked up the phone. checked how people are, check what people are doing, and it's genuine. You want these people to go, and that's what I even did, going right the way back to those Laura Rafferty's and Millie Farrows when they were a 15-year-old playing for me. When I'm come back and see them in the WSL and catching up with them, and they're 5 years down the line and they're smashing it or getting international call-ups, it's great for me as a coach, because that always goes in the CV. You've worked with players that are doing this, but also I just enjoy watching to see how these players get on. And I've got players now that I love seeing how, like, Rihanna Dean's doing at Tottenham. When Megan Wynne scored last season for Wales, I knew how hard she worked to get back into that setup when I was with her at Millwall, and Tottenham was real tough for her. But when she scored, like, I think I probably saw it and I cheered, because it was just, I know what the journey the player's been through, and I think for me, if you can connect with people as much as you can do, they generally feel like you care. Then, along with that element of enjoying themselves, I think we can get what we want out of players, whether they're young or maybe on the other side.
Yeah, no, totally. I agree as well. I think, I've always used this scenario of when people get to about the age of 18, they would have had thousands of coaches coach them. Not even just within football, within any sport. And I think the ones that they really know and understand and stick with them in their minds are, like you said, the ones which they've built a relationship with. And like you said, are just honest. I mean, when I've done some interviews with players, that was one of the key things they always mention. Just want honesty. I want honesty, and I want, like you said, that ability to understand what I need. Some players like a kick, some players like an arm around their shoulder. And I think that, like you said, if you've obviously been able to work with these players and you're still able to keep in contact with them and just, like you said, genuinely care about their well-being, not even just as a footballer, but just their well-being as an individual, then like you said, I think you're going to be able to effectively get more out of them in terms of when they play for you, and not even necessarily buy into what you want them to do, but get what you want out of them, and understanding that it's not just for you, it's for the club and it's for them as players as well. So
that honesty thing's spot on. Probably the best non-league manager I played for, still calling Gaffer now, is a guy called Andy Leader. And I could, this podcast has to be an over 18 podcast to really talk about the stuff he went through and the stuff he did. He was, it is quite shocking. He got some great stories about him, and he was brilliant in the change room. But when your name was on that board and he picked you knew you deserved it, because he was so honest that you would be on the bet. If you weren't playing, there was a reason why, and that was sometimes through all of it. The fact that your name was on the board, that was brilliant, because that you're not getting away with being picked. He is honest as the day's long, and and I took a lot from him. And a lot of players couldn't handle how he was, and would move out and only be in the club for 3-4 weeks before he's sworn at them a few times and kicked them a few times and whatever, and they've had to leave. And but I enjoyed working with him for a long time, because he was one of the first managers that would praise me, but would also, the praise wouldn't have to be coming from a talkative point of view. Wouldn't have to tell me I'm doing well. That was enough, just being on the board, because he was honest. And I think that's, as you say, I've tried to take that as much as possible. Maybe not volleying players in the change room. I don't do that. He's unfortunately he doesn't manage anymore, because the way he did then, I met with him a couple of years ago. He wouldn't work nowadays, with the way players and culture come through and things. And maybe some of the stuff he did was a little bit close to the bone. But the honesty that I got from him as a manager was all I needed as a player to want to turn up every week and try my hardest. And I've taken that. Yeah. I mean, I remember one story in the non-league, which probably sits with me. Another side, was, you talk about honesty. I was arriving late to a game, not playing for this manager, another one. And I got there late, and he told me during the week I was going to start. And as I got to the game, I was late from coaching. There's, football clashing with football. And he said, "Look, Lee, I can't start you in the game because you've run." And I said, "Look, that's fine. I understand that, because my fault. I've run late. No problem." He said, "But I'm going to bring you on at half time. You're going to come on at half time because he's going to start you, so don't worry." So I was like, "Okay, cool." So I sat on the bench, and I'm on the bench. There's 4 of us. Only 3 could come on. Yeah. And one of the guys went to me, "Oh, you a bit annoyed you're not starting?" I said, No. To be fair, he did tell me I was starting, but it's my fault. I was late. And he said, "I'm going to come at half time." And the player said to me, "Oh, brilliant." He said to me, "I'm coming at half time as well." Then the third sub turned around and went, "I'm going on at half time as well." And the fourth sub said, "Well, what am I doing here then?" You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And it was like, and guess what? I didn't get on half time. I got on in about 60 minutes, and neither did the other two. So, you know, it's things like that. It was funny at the time. We were literally crying with laughter because of the fourth guy saying, "What am I doing?" But when I didn't get on at half time, all of a sudden you sat there for the next 20 minutes stewing, and the other two, and then everyone's starting to stew. And it's just, you've got to be honest with people, you know. And if you say something, try to deliver, and that's what I've always tried to live by. If I say something to a player, I try to deliver that. And if I can't, I try to give them the truth and the reason behind that. If I ever say I'm going to start a player, I've never gone against that. Yeah. Even if I've wanted to change that. And I'm very careful about that. When I sign players, I don't tell them they're going to play 90 minutes every week, because it's a lie. Yeah. It's a lie, because things change. And I'm not, you know, if I tell a player they're going to start on a Wednesday, no matter what happens during the week, they have to, because I think it's the worst thing you can do is tell a person they're going to play or play whatever and then change that from them. I generally think that that's one of the worst things you can do in management. So I make sure I've learned all those things through the good and the bad managers I've had, probably more so from some of the bad moments, but I don't want a player to feel like I felt in that moment.
Yeah, I think that's the thing as well. I was going to say that sometimes it's the, not even necessarily negatives, but sometimes the worst experiences are the ones that stick with you for the longest. So, you know, a manager could have said to you, "Oh, you're going to start this week," but, you know, how many times do you remember that? But you remember the one which is the one where it said, you know, I'll start, you'll come on at half time, and you didn't. So I think that, like you said, it's got to be so careful, because players will remember I remember that time that they didn't, they said this and they didn't do that, rather than the time where you said, "Oh, I'll do this," and that happened. That goes out their mind so quickly as a player.
Where we live in Southampton, we have a lot of the Isle of Wight teams are in our league, so we have to travel over to the Isle of Wight a lot to play. And I was playing over the Isle of Wight with another player once. We were in the same car driving over. The club had booked the travel over late because, you know, people coming from work. We ended up driving our car over with a couple other cars. Got into the change room. The manager's like, "Oh, you're late, so I can't start you. You told me I was going to start. I can't start you." I'm like, "Well, you booked the travel. You know, it's your fault. You know we were coming. I'm here in time." And he said, "No, you can't start." Then proceeded to give the number 7 shirt to my mate who was in the car with me, and he was starting. And I was just like, so I left. You know, I'm not. But again, it's just you can lose someone so quickly in a moment like that as a manager. But I remember all these things, and I look back at these management things and go, I never want my players to feel like I felt in that moment. I never want to do it. Yeah, so they're funny stories now, and we get around the table and we crack up about it. But it's one of those. It's learning from those things you can do. It's really important.
Yeah, no, totally. And with that as well, kind of like you said about the manager, which you had at non-league, and like you said, you kind of took a bit of influence from him. And obviously, like I said, you've had lots of experiences in coaching. What has kind of been the sort of main influence? Has it been sort of the coaches you've worked under? Is it the coaches you've worked with? Has it been the players? Has it been the courses which you've been on? Or has it been kind of a collective of all of them?
Yeah, I think it's everything. You know, I'm very lucky now. When I worked for the FA, we obviously got lots of CPD, which is great, and working with some brilliant people, from people like Pete Sturgis, Paul Holder in the programme, that, you know, had a big impact on me and how they deliver and their personality. You know, we saw loads of FA educators, but Pete and Paul stick out to me because of the way they deliver, and that done a lot. And so then people like that were superb and helped a lot. Now I'm not in the FA, but the LMA. I've just done the LMA diploma, so we get loads of events through that, and I'm sat there with players that have played 100 games. You know, sat in the room with Martin O'Neill and Sol Campbell, and they're just the names and the qualities of these people as players and managers and things. You can't help but just learn off them and things like that. So I'm enjoying that side of things at the moment. So influences all around, but I think it's just, for me, is even though I'm quite a young manager, I've been doing this for a long time. As I say, I've been coaching since I was 14. I've been managing probably since I was sort of 16, 17. So, and also one of the big things that stuck with me was Les Howie in FA said, when you do something for 10 years, are you doing something for 10 years, or are you doing the same year 10 times repeated?
Yes, good
and
point.
That's always stuck with me, because I've always tried to change what I've done. And when I was in the skills program so long, the stuff I was doing outside it, Girls Centre of Excellence, non-league, whatever, disability football, futsal, I've tried to always change and adapt. And I think my opportunities to work right across the game have helped me get to this point now. And I think so. I've taken learning bits from everything. from absolutely everything, and I will continue to, because I'm nowhere near. I still make hundreds of mistakes, you know, but hopefully I get 101 things right, which is the journey I'm going. And I'm also honest with my players. You know, if I tell them I think I've made a mistake, I do that, and I think again they appreciate that they can see that you're learning as a coach and a manager still, like they're learning as players.
Yeah,
you know, and I get team selection wrong. I get tactically I get things wrong. I put bad coaching sessions on. You know, and again, you've got to have the right players. I've got Georgie Giddings that plays for me, and I've known Georgie for years now, and I get on brilliantly with her. She's superb. But if I put a bad session on, she'll tell me.
Yeah.
You know, she'll be the first one. That was crap today. What you do? You know, she will. You get into. Well, I need that, and I appreciate her for doing that. You know, and but that's having that relationship with people where she knows she's not crossing a boundary to say that. She feels in the way she comes across and says it, and I will take it on board. And there's been times I've gone back, well, so actually no, I think that there was issues within the players in that moment or whatever happened there. But 9 times out of 10, I'm going first person to reflect on is myself. Yeah, wasn't good enough, and I'll take that. So. So influences from all, and there will continue to be loads of influences. And to say the LMA stuff and me at the moment is great, just to be in a room with these people, and not just guys from the Premier League. Nigel Pearson was on our course, for example, you know, and halfway through he gets a Watford job, learning and just having a drink with him in the bar at the evening, listening to him and how he is with people. And I can see why he's a top manager, because the way he made me feel a couple of times just talking to him, he was brilliant. But also not just him, but catching up with the likes of Matt Beard, who's done great within the women's game. You know, he's doing a great job at West Ham. So it's not just within football, it's within my area as well, and picking the brains of people and stuff. So I'll continue to do that and just keep trying to win games of football and enjoy myself en route, and hopefully no more clubs going bankrupt.
Nice. I think you're right. I think the experiences are so important. Like, just taking bits from here and there, really. And kind of looking at sort of your career up to date so far, and even before, sort of like, you know, the positions within Yeovil, Millwall, and London Bees. What would you kind of say has been your greatest achievement or experience, if you want to call it that, so far? Because obviously, again, one of the big credits to yourself and what the job is at Millwall, obviously the LMA Manager of the Year award. Now, people look at that and they think, it's an incredible achievement. But was it something like that, or was it something not even in terms of the actual, like I said, the women's game you've been in so far? Has it been something maybe early on within your career?
Well, I think the award at Millwall was great, you know, the LMA award, and I got a couple of manager months this year, and again was nominated this year, which was probably just as strong as winning it before, because, you know, Gemma Davis was brilliant at Villa, so, you know, massively deserved it this year. So just get that credit for the job we've done was great. So yeah, things like that are good, you know. But I think for me, like, getting my A license was always a big thing. So I remember as a 16-year-old doing my junior team managers, looking at A license coaches and being like, that's my target, that's where I want to be, and to go through and to get that opportunity to do that course and qualify was great. But yeah, so I think so far, just adding to my qualification all the time, meeting the people I've got and some of the friendships I've got through football are just as important. And it might, you know, Megan Alexander, for example, she's just announced that she's pregnant.
Okay.
That's gone out there. So, you know, we're going to lose Meg for half a season, and, you know, she's announced it herself, which is great. But for me, I've known her for quite a period now. And to now that next journey of going through and supporting someone in that sort of side and seeing how they get on, those sort of achievements are just being around people in their lives and seeing people go through different things and hardships and like that. That is all part of it. Might, you know, some people might think it sounds, you know, corny or whatever, but that's just that's part of it for me. And the LMA awards have been superb, but I always live on the creed of, like, if last season was going to be the one you always look back on, then that's not good enough. You know, I enjoyed what I did at Millwall. We had a great season at London Bees, but I don't want to be looking back going, that season at Millwall was the one. It can't be. I've got to do better than that. I've got to have a season where, you know, it's better than that. And that's what I say to my players as well. They've always got to be looking for the next season to be your best one. The one you look back on. It doesn't even have to be the best in far as winning stuff. But why was it the best, you know? So for me, you know, I've only just started, and Yeah, again, this has just come out literally this week. There was a journalist that wrote a piece about me being a genuine candidate for the England role. And again, it is someone who's taking time out of their day that does a job that's decided that, even if it's only one person's opinion, like, you know, it was just nice that someone took their time out to write an article about their belief in me being able to do that job. And for me, it's not a trophy or nothing, but it's something where I look at that and, you know, it was nice, and it was genuine, and it was good. So, you know, it doesn't mean anything because the very next day it got posted. We got the New England, you know, and that's not a role that, you know, I applied for or looked at. But the fact that one person just even thinks you're good enough for that role is the same when any roles come round. It is for me, and a little bit of an achievement. So, but yeah, my biggest achievements are still to come. I believe that.
Yeah, no, I totally agree with you. I think, like you said, in terms of what you've achieved so far, and like I said, we're not only looking at the awards and things like that, but also just in terms of, like you said, just the development of the players, and mixed in with that, you know, and yeah, again, I saw the article as well. I think, like you said, it's a big credit to yourself and what you've achieved and what you're going on to achieve as well. So, you know, it's going good. And in terms of kind of like an overall, and it's a very cliche thing, and when I talk to coaches and managers, I try and put a bit of a spin on it. But obviously, when people talk to players, they say, you know, what advice would you give to players? My advice would be, my question would be, what advice would you give to coaches going into sort of, or thinking of going into managing, or players that are thinking of going into managing? Is there any kind of key things you'd advise them to look out for or be aware of?
I think first thing I will say to all coaches, get out there and coach as much as you can, and as many different groups. Go and work with 30 kids in a school at Christmas time. We got a piano in the corner and a Christmas tree over there, and you know, kids will. That's real life. Being able to deal with problems of coaching, and when you can do that to a level, when you've got 18 pro players or whatever that want to turn up, and you know, it's probably a little bit easier to organise sessions. So, I think having those experiences are huge. As far as people looking to go into management and stuff, I think it's find your own way, your own style. You know, nick as much as you can from other people, but be yourself. If you've got to a point where someone's given you an opportunity to be a manager, then people have seen a lot in you to do that role. So use that. Don't try to change and become a Guardiola or Mourinho. You know, be yourself. Yeah. And I always say for those people that are going into it that have been players at whatever level, so the big thing for me was, how did you feel when you reflect back on when you were a player, the good times, the bad times, the indifferent times, and try to use your own reflection as a player, try to put yourself in their shoes when you do the things to them. That would be my big advice for people, is really reflect on how you felt and think about how you're making someone else feel when you do something, and the impact you can have on these people, because football's a big part of a lot of people's lives. Yeah. It's massive, it's huge, and not just the people that work with him, but the volunteers and everyone we've got. And some people, I think, forget that sometimes. You know, whatever facet of the game you're working in, it's brilliant, and I'm very lucky, and people are very lucky to do what they do. You know, for me to be making a living, and all I have to worry about is picking a team as such at the weekend. You know, there's people out there that are going, you know, into a lot tougher worlds, and you know, I know things can change very quickly in football, as much as it's going well. Yeah. And as you mentioned earlier, the women's game does give you a bit more time. Yeah. But I think it's also moving and becoming more and more ruthless as more and more money comes in. You know, I think COVID probably saved a few managers from maybe losing their jobs, which is great because we want people to have longer opportunities. But I think we're going the way we're seeing more and more sackings in our game, and I know it can change quite quickly. So yeah. And also the last thing I'll probably add is go into the version of the game that you really have a passion for. Yeah. I see maybe people trying to get into the women's game as a stepping stone to move out into other games, and you know, I think people need to think about that, because there's a lot of people in the game that have been here for a long time that are striving and working very hard to get jobs. New people that come in are needed, but it's got to be the right people. It's got to be the right people, no matter what their background, whether they're players within the women's game, like we've seen Casey Stoney do. You know, superb. We need opportunities for players like that. But also, there's people that have been around in it a long time that need to continue to get the opportunities. You know, if the Chelsea job come up tomorrow and Emma Hayes decided to move on, you'd get some people that have probably had some unbelievable playing and coaching careers that want that job because it's Chelsea Football Club.
Yeah.
Are they going to be right for our game, or are they going to come in, get Chelsea FC on their CV and then move on quickly? And you just hope that people maybe that are making those decisions are aware of that, because there's a lot of good people in the jobs and a lot of good people that are coming in. So yeah, that's a big thing for me.
Yeah, no, I think it's fantastic advice, and I agree. I think, you know, people need to treat the women's game with respect, and quite rightly so, because, you know, like I said, it's already started going in the right direction, and it's going to continue to, hopefully. So yeah, like you said, they need to treat it with respect and understand that, you know what, this is, like you said earlier on, I think it goes back to the first thing you said, it's football. You know, you can't make comparisons between the men and the women's game, because ultimately it's universal. Football is universal. So yeah, I think
it's fine if people don't enjoy that type of, you know, some people think it's a bit slower or things, whatever. I like watching youth football. I like watching the Premier League and non-league and stuff, but I watch under 21 football, and it doesn't do anything for me. It's not my, you know, they're the old reserve leagues, and that doesn't excite me, that part of the game, and that's fine. Some people might not like futsal or beach soccer or whatever, but you might like those things. And I think what's hard is when people decide to go on social media and, you know, decide to have a go. I mean, who sits there? I don't like cricket. I don't watch cricket.
Yeah.
But so I don't watch it. And what I certainly don't do is when a cricketer pops up on Twitter, I don't go onto Twitter and start hammering them because I don't like it.
Yeah.
I struggle to see people's mentality around that. I know people want to get be in their bonnet about the equality thing, but actually players at Man City are not asking to be paid the same as Sergio Aguero. That's not what they're asking. So if people want to try to hammer people because that's what it is, then they need a bit more education around actually what the players are asking for.
Yeah, I think that's important as well. That key thing there, you said, just having the education of understanding the environment you're going into and not having the perceptions of what people, like you said, uneducated people have on social media. Because, you know, but no, listen, I won't take up no more of your time. It's been a fantastic insight into your journey. You've, like I said, really important. I'll try to get you on here today because, like I said, your insight to your journey is incredible. I think, like you said, you've done everything that there is almost within the game in terms of the different stages. And like I said, you've had a really successful journey so far, and I'm sure you'll continue to. So yeah, all I can say is thank you for taking the time and joining us here today. I really do appreciate it.
Thank you very much.